It's a game day, Seattle Kraken fans. We are going to be hosting the Calgary Flames. We've got plenty of home games so we can improve that record at Climate Pledge Arena. And yeah, let's talk about the weirdness that is the Winter Classic leak. I don't even know. That's coming up on this game day episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hello, Kraken fans, hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team every single day. My name is Erica L. Ayala. I am your host of Locked On Kraken. Thanks so much for joining us today. And I want to let you know today's episode of this here program, Locked On Kraken, brought to you by the Sleeper app. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms for details. All right, Kraken fans, we got a big win over Vancouver we're going to talk about. We're going to get you ready for the Canucks, and then we're going to keep it going with the Kansas City Mavericks spotlight. And you're actually going to hear from Tucker Robertson. And later in the week, you'll hear from head coach and general manager of the Kansas City Mavericks, Tad Ohad. What a great name. I love it. He was a great conversationalist. It was great to have a conversation with him yesterday. The Kansas City Mavericks took care of business against the Tulsa Oilers once again. But let's get into Vancouver. The Seattle Kraken get a big win against a divisional opponent. Had to eke out the win, but got to win against a divisional opponent, got to win against a top divisional opponent, got to win at home. And just, I liked how we won this game. The Seattle Kraken, as we've been talking about, have struggled to keep a lead. We did blow a lead again. But the 4-3 win against the Vancouver Canucks really spoke to me about the direction that the Kraken are going in. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. And here is what I had to say to our good friend Gil Martin, host of Locked On NHL, on today's Locked On NHL show. Let me take you over to that conversation, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper when it comes to Kraken stuff that you need to know, specifics, and I'll get into a little bit more detail. But here's my conversation with Gil Martin regarding the win and maybe what that says about Kraken consistency, which is what we're going to talk about in the next segment.
Back to the show, a familiar face to Locked On NHL viewers and a familiar voice to Locked On NHL listeners, Erica L. Ayala of Locked On Kraken. And Erica, finally, 2 wins in a row for the Kraken. What's been the difference in these last 2 one-goal wins?
I think the Seattle Kraken have gotten back to the type of hockey that has been their bread and butter in 2 1/4 seasons, just about a quarter. And that has been being a lunch pail, blue collar, by committee team. We're seeing players really step it up when it comes to the physicality. I know that you and I, Gil, have talked on our respective shows about players like our leading scorer, Jared McCann, mixing it up and putting on big hits. And we've also seen some of our forwards, our more finesse forwards, step up and really get into shooting lanes and block pucks at opportune moments to really relieve some of that pressure that our goaltenders have had to absorb because we were giving away breakaways, because we were pinching too much defensively, and then really just giving too much time and too much space to our opponents. So by getting back to a complete team game, by everyone buying in to playing an aggressive checking game, an aggressive defensive game so that we can win back possession, that's when we've started to see the tide turn for the Kraken.
Got to ask you about Vince Dunn. He is off to a great start this season. What is making his game so effective right now?
And again, you and I have talked about this on Locked On Kraken, but Vince Dunn, we knew, came in with a big contract. I do think that, or we re-signed him, I should say. And I do think that knowing that he's here for a while, knowing that the Seattle Kraken were able to get to an agreement with him, has put a little bit more emphasis on his whole game being more well-rounded. He was definitely an offensive powerhouse for us last year, but now I'm starting to see the leadership, not just by what he's individually doing, but by being a true leader on this team for the Seattle Kraken. And that not only has he been able to match the type of performance that we expect from him, especially coming off of last season, but now he's able to help especially some of the younger players, and not just defensemen, do that as well. So for my money, I think it's the intangibles of what Vince Dunn is doing from a leadership perspective, including he's even said while he was mic'd up that he's approaching chirping a little bit differently. He said he's not the guy that's going to be yelling on the ice. It didn't really work for him last year. He said his PIMs were higher than he wanted. So he's trying to be more cool, calm, and collected, and that's definitely showing. Power play.
Had to ask you about Matty Beniers. We talked about him on our crossover episode last week, but he seems to be playing a little better the last few games. What have you seen from him?
For me, Matty Beniers was always focused on the right things. The results just weren't coming. I think Matty Beniers continues to be that player who's a great puck hunter for us. He's the prototype. When I say playing in all three zones, playing that possession checking game, it doesn't always work out for him, and he's still learning how to work on gaps and his spacing and whatnot, particularly so he can be even more of an asset for us defensively. But I think what's happened now is it's just the same old song, as we said the other day, but as everyone else is really understanding and nailing their assignments, that provides more pressure on the defense. They can't just focus on Matty Beniers. They can't just focus on Vince Dunn, and good luck if all you're going to do is focus on those guys. Now they have to worry about everyone else, the puck possession moving, and so that opens up seams. Oh my gosh, Jordan Eberle absolutely sold out below the goal line in the corner on a forecheck to set Matty Beniers up for a one-time shot just the other night to get us a really big win against a division opponent in Vancouver. That to me epitomizes, again, not just the style of play that's been successful for the Kraken, but why we're seeing Matty Beniers be more successful.
Talk to me about the goaltending. It seems to be a little inconsistent, although obviously that may have to do with the defense the team is or is not playing in front of them. But how concerned are you about the start that the goaltenders have had this year?
I actually haven't been as concerned. You're always focused on goaltending because those numbers are very cut and dry. You know, they're right out there for you. But again, as we've talked about a few times, it has been the defensive assignments, the blown defensive assignments, giving breakaway opportunities. But what I will say is, and I think Philip Grubauer has taken, I don't want to say this in a positive way, but he's taken a positive approach in the competition that he's gotten from Joey Daccord, who's a very good puck moving goaltender. And what we've seen is Philip Grubauer, although that's not his game, he's not going to, jailbreak one of our forwards, but what he can do is be very active with his stick. And we have seen Philip Grubauer, even against the Islanders, he had an active stick and he saved at least 2 goals by being able to cut cut the passing lanes for, again, in the case of the Islanders, and be proactive in that way. We haven't always seen at least the Kraken version of Philip Grubauer do that. So I like that he's doing that. I like that he's maybe not evolving his game, but he's definitely elevating his game. He wants to be the number one goaltender. We want him to be the number one goaltender. And that's a way that he can do, and he can impact the game positively, just as Joey Daccord does when he's able to shuffle the puck.
All right. So how optimistic are you that this team can get back to where they were, or even close to where they were a year ago in the way they're playing?
I'm optimistic in just our second 2-game win streak of the season, because especially against Vancouver, we saw the Seattle Kraken take control of the pace of the game. They weren't waiting for the game to come to them. They went and attacked Vancouver. Still lost a lead, so we got to work on that. But at least we got a multi-goal lead late in the game, and those are things that we can build upon. There were times early on, and it was early, but I wasn't questioning if we could find the fire, but I was questioning when we would find the fire that we needed to play the way that we play best, and who was going to step up to usher that in. You have to weather the storms. Everyone knows that, still early in the season, but I am hopeful because the attitude, the commitment to Kraken hockey was on high display in an OT shootout win. We haven't had a shootout win, I think, since our first season. And then again, and not a must-win game, but a very important win against a divisional opponent who's top 2 in the Pacific Division, against Vancouver. So if you want to hear my full analysis and breakdown, just more broad strokes about the Seattle Kraken, make sure you're listening to or watching Locked On NHL with Gil Martin. I believe Kraken is in the first segment for today's episode of Locked On NHL, which is also a part of course, our new Locked On Sports Today 24/7 YouTube channel. 24/7 streaming channel for free on YouTube. We have the first ever national sports 24/7 channel, and Locked On NHL is one of the many different shows from the Locked On Podcast Network that you can find on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe today. Coming up on Locked On Kraken, I want to dive into the consistency. Excuse me. I want to dive into the consistency for the Kraken, because I believe it was Jeff Baker from the Seattle Times today at Morning Skate before our game against the Calgary Flames, asking what it would mean to start off the next homestand that we have. You can see the schedule and the posters for this year behind me. But what does it mean to start a homestand with a win and to continue what right now is a 2-game winning streak for the Seattle Kraken? I want to dive into that a little bit while we also talk about getting ready for the Calgary Flames. Drive and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and so much more. When you're into speed power, whether you're into speed power or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home the W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. They have over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You can always find exactly what you need by heading over to eBay Motors. So this is for eligible items only, and certain exclusions apply. The eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available for U.S. customers. Once again, head over to ebaymotors.com to find everything you need for your ride or die. And that is your ride, aka your whip, your hoopty, La Gargacha. Check out ebaymotors.com. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here, bringing you more analysis on your favorite NHL team, the Seattle Kraken. So you heard me with Gil talking about Matty Beniers, and I said when we did our squad cast with Gil ahead of the game and the win against the Islanders, I'm not worried about Matty B. You shouldn't be worried about Matty B. I did think Matty was getting in his own head a little bit, but you saw monkey off of the back. And that's something actually that Vince Dunn talked about today at morning skate. And it speaks to how the team hopes to build some consistency. Let's take you to Vince Dunn ahead of today's game against the Calgary Flames.
Well, just to start here, we've heard a lot about the word confidence. Where do you sense it's at right now with the gears picking up on this team and where it's going to really pay off right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of monkeys are off a lot of our backs now, and I think that definitely helps personal and individual confidence. Team's been playing a lot more structured now, and the compete level is where it needs to be. So I think with the combination of those things, we start to see more results come our way, not just in wins, but on periods and certain game time situations. So I think starting to see things come together, it's a good feeling for us, but by no means should we be just relaxed about it. We need to keep pushing and keep working our way to build a foundation for this team. And I think it's been a good couple of wins, but we still have a lot of work to do.
On that note, how important is it to capitalize on the upcoming home stretch of games that you have this week?
Yeah, it's been kind of a hectic schedule, I guess. So I think the win against the Islanders, playing better at home is important for us. We need to take advantage of home ice, and that wasn't something that we were doing at the start of the season. So I think now we just need to continue to start the games the right way, and I think we've done a pretty good job in the past couple of games in doing that, and I think that should be our focus here coming in tonight. And
so again, taking on the Calgary Flames, but if you take a look at the schedule, mine's over here. We talked about this last week, but we also have San Jose, and then we get Vancouver again. 4-3 game. We blew a lead, as I talked about in the first segment. So the consistency. Do we have enough consistency? Well, Dave Hakstol was asked a little bit about that. Here's what he had to say regarding stringing together wins and what's important for his team to focus on tonight.
The advantage of these home games upcoming before that?
I haven't even really thought about the run. I've thought about tonight. I mean, that's it. Like I said, it's short term. And if you start looking down the road, I just went through everybody's schedule around the league. Everybody's got a tough schedule. So, you have to own your own schedule. And for us right now, our opportunity is, there's 3 in a row here at home. But, you're not taking care of the second and third ones right now. This is the only one that really matters. We've been a pretty consistent hockey team. And it seems like every time this year I've talked about that, we've taken a step back. That's reality. So, we've got a big job ahead of us tonight, and we're going to make sure we keep taking those steps forward.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with what Dave is saying. Take care of what's in front of them. And tonight, what's in front of us? Calgary. Let's get to know thy enemy just a wee bit. Overall record 6-8-3, 15 points on the season for the Calgary Flames. You can see there, if you're watching on YouTube, that the Seattle Kraken are 7-8 and 18 points overall. The away record for the Calgary Flames, 3-5-2. The home record for the Seattle Kraken, yikes, 3-5-0. You can see Vince Dunn right there as our points leader. That's why Gil Martin asks about him plenty of times. And we talked about him on the power play. Power play for the Seattle Kraken at a 25.4% clip, 12.7, yikes, for the Flames. Now, with that said, I want to see more discipline, Seattle Kraken, just because we, in theory, on paper, can go to the box and maybe not be as penalized. as like other teams, doesn't mean we should. I want to see us be focused, boys. Okay, some other stats. Let's take a look at the penalty kill. Speaking of, oh, look at this, 85.7% for the Calgary Flames, 72.9% clip for the Kraken. Speaks exactly to what I was talking about. Just because they don't have a great power play doesn't mean that I want to give them an opportunity. And they are very good on the penalty kill. They're better than us on the PK. And we, even though they might not be great on the power play, we're not, doing our best always on the PK. So you want to see these stats as informative, but not as the absolute law, because that's why we play the games. If it was just as simple as looking at some data numbers, then I guess we'd just be playing some kind of electric game and let the algorithm decide the outcome. But the outcome can be decided by how the Seattle Kraken play, which is very exciting. Momentum. Now, we talked about this a lot last year. You may remember, if you're an everydayer, if you're an OGer, that Dave Hakstol doesn't really believe in momentum carrying from game to game. He does want to see the hard work continue to pay off. He talked about, in his remarks earlier that I didn't play for you, but he talked about feeling that there has been consistency for the Seattle Kraken. That's where I have a difference of opinion with Dave Hakstol. I honestly think, well, let me put it this way, because Vince Dunn also talked about consistency or lack thereof. And he was asked about finishing games in the third period, but he said that, dare I say, and use the word consistently, the Kraken have had difficulty in the second period. And yes, that's usually where they give up a lead if they have one, which is why if we close out the second period and we go into the third with a lead, usually that bodes well for the Seattle Kraken. So I guess there has been some consistency for the Kraken, but the habits that at least have stood out to me are not habits that we want to consistently see. Pinching, not forechecking, or not checking aggressively and winning back puck battles. The face-off dot, giving breakaway opportunities to the opponent, missing defensive assignments. I think we've consistently seen that for the Kraken. Is that me being a little too difficult? I don't know. Let me know. Question of the day. Do you think the Seattle Kraken are a consistent team in positive metrics? Let me know your thoughts. Like I said, I feel kind of bad saying this right after I asked your opinion, but let me know what you think. Just keep in mind that should we win tonight, this would be the longest winning streak that we've had all season, with a whopping 3 games in a row. Let me know what you think about consistency. Me and Dave Hakstol, we have a little bit of a disagreement there. But what I do think is consistent, and something that I have been talking about on this show, is the vision, the 3 to 5 year plan, the communication. And usually we're talking about that communication between the Coachella Valley Firebirds and the Seattle Kraken. But because the Kansas City Mavericks are in town, I'm going to spend some time this week getting to learn myself and then sharing with you what the consistency, or the Reagan style trickle down theory between top brass at the Seattle Kraken looks like in the AHL and the ECHL. So coming up next on Locked On Kraken, we're actually going to hear from Tucker Robertson on today's episode. He talks to me exclusively after the 5-1 win over the Tulsa Oilers Sunday night, last night, and talks a little bit about his experience at Kraken Community Iceplex in his second training camp with the Kraken earlier this year. That's coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. As I mentioned earlier, today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by Sleeper. The new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Will Vince Dunn be the points leader for the Seattle Kraken as they march along in pursuit of the Stanley Cup championship? Well, All we know is that on a daily basis, you can play daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy hockey app for the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You can also use the Sleeper app for NFL, NBA, MLB, college football. I think I said Canadian football once. That's on me. All that you can find also on the Sleeper app. Entries can be made in less than 60 seconds. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Matty Beniers or Ellie Tolvanen will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and so many more things. So if you want to win 100 times your bet, head over to the Sleeper app. And once you download the app, set up your account, make sure you use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and that will get you up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. Don't forget that code on the Sleeper app, LOCKEDONNHL, for your $100 match. Make sure you check out Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Kraken fans, we love the Seattle Kraken. We love the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and we also love the Kansas City Mavericks. Pew, pew, and they are putting on a clinic against the Tulsa Oilers here. Now, if you listened to the show last week, you know that I have been doing a little bit more coverage and writing and synthesis over at Black Rosie Media. We are waiting on a few more interviews, but I didn't want to wait any longer to share a little bit of what Tucker Robertson, had to say after the win on Sunday. Tucker was in Seattle earlier this year. He was there for training camp, and we actually heard from Tucker after that first game at CPA, because he got the first goal of the game in ultimately what was a loss. But here's Tucker talking after a 5-1 win over the Tulsa Oilers, where he had 3 points, 1 goal, 2 assists. Here's what he had to say about his play, his team's play, and the synthesis between the Kraken, the Firebirds, and the Mavericks.
Thanks so much for your time. All right, Tucker, let's talk about playing this Oilers team. Got the win against them the other day, but looks like they really wanted to come out aggressive. How do you think the team was able to weather the storm that the Oilers put on in the first period?
Yeah, I thought we did a pretty good job. Obviously, we had a slow start kind of there, taking it to us in the first period. And, got a goal at the end of the period, which helped, and then kind of took it to them from there. I thought we had a good second and third, and I was impressed with our road effort today.
And how did you feel about your performance? You were able to get 3 points overall, really active offensively.
I was happy. I'm not too worried about the points, so obviously when you're playing well, they're going to come, so it's nice. Thought I did a good job in the face-off circle today, and one lost a little battle, so I was more happy about that stuff.
And I want to ask you a little bit about, obviously, you're an affiliate with Coachella and the Seattle Kraken. What has it been like for you after being at Kraken Community Iceplex earlier this year for training camp, and to be able to utilize some of, not just what you learned on the ice, but some of the conversations that you were able to have off of the ice, and now translate that to your game day to day?
Yeah, it's great. It helps a ton. Just seeing all the professionals up there and how good they are and how well they treat their bodies and all stuff like that. Just having little conversations with guys on the top team and on Coachella is really cool for me, and I learned a lot up there and using it down here.
And I talked to Coach O'Had a little bit about what his communication is like between the 3 affiliates. But from a player's perspective, do you ever see that? Or what does that kind of look like for y'all as far as just making sure that you understand the system and what's expected of you, regardless of if you're with the Mavericks, the Firebirds, or the Kraken?
Yeah, I think they do a really good job between all 3 organizations kind of having similar systems. So if you get called up anywhere, it's easy to adjust. So the coaches kind of relay it to each other, and I think they do a great job of it.
And then finally, I'll get you out of here on this one, but who controls the aux? It seems like it's throwbacks there.
I'm not too sure. I think it might be Jonesy.
All right.
So again, that was Tucker Robertson. He is a forward for the Seattle affiliate in the ECHL, the Kansas City Mavericks. You heard him talk a little bit about the slow start. Now, again, if you listen to Locked On Kraken, but especially if you're reading some of the stuff that I'm starting to post over on Black Rosie Media, which of course is my media company that I own, we talked about this. Tulsa really disappointed in how they played, the aggression, maybe overthinking things. And you saw they came out the gate. I think within the first 10 minutes, they were leading in shots. They had a goal go off the post against Jack LaFontaine. But ultimately, the Kansas City Mavericks did score in the first period. They got 2 in the second frame and got 2 empty netters in the third period. So I'm going to have more from the Kansas City, I almost said Monarchs, different team, and they didn't even play in Kansas City. I'm going to have more from the Mavericks. They're going to return to Tulsa on Wednesday. And it was great to talk with Tad O'Had. It was great to talk with Tucker, but we're going to talk to some of the other players that alongside Tucker Robertson, were in Seattle for training camp. Of course, as an affiliate, lots of our draft picks are going to end up, not lots, but some of our draft picks are going to end up with our ECHL affiliate. And Tucker himself, really interesting story, didn't get drafted his first go round. And he talked about that with us in Seattle. So again, look for some of those bonus episodes if you are a part of our Locked On Kraken Insiders via subtext. If you want to hear more from Tucker, learn more about his journey to professional hockey, but also hear from Tad O'Had. Oh gosh, I love that name. I will give you all the full interviews and the first look at some of what we have coming from the Kansas City Mavericks. Text 918-731-3154. That's 918-731-3154 to join. Less than $5, and you get a 14-day free trial upon your first sign up. That's our show, folks. We're going to get you ready for game day. Woo! More from Kansas City. Obviously, more about the Seattle Kraken and their homestand. Big one on Friday. So we're not going to focus on Firebirds Friday because we got a big game and I want us to talk about it. But throughout, we will sprinkle in some of my reporting from the Kansas City Mavericks. And again, if you want all of that in detail, make sure you become part of our Locked On Kraken Insiders. You can text once again 918-731-3154 to join that. And also check out Black Rosie Media because some of my thoughts I will have in print, in text over there. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to one another. Hold fast. Stay true. Let's go Kraken. Let's get that win tonight, baby. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.